this life. So, as part of this journey now with day 4 in the Jews, we see that Jesus actually goes into the temple and cleans it out. I mean, words like he made a whip of cords and he drives out the sheep and the oxen. He overturns the tables. In particular, you shall not make my Father's house a house of trade. Zeal. Zeal for your house will consume me. So again, this is a time for us to look at, what do we spend our zeal in? Number one, do we even have zeal? Do we have that much passion? And number two, is that passion, first of all, used for God? Maybe make a list again of things and ways and times that you have used that zeal for God. Then look at other areas in your life where you've had zeal also. Maybe it's for your work, maybe it's your kids, maybe it's a hobby. And list different ways that you've been zealous. Maybe you've been overzealous in those areas. Compare those lists and see, where should I be more zealous and where less? Because unless we're zealous for the Lord, we'll never get to the stage of sharing and being courageous and evangelizing to others. So start looking at where you maybe need to be more zealous. Also along the way, we see that St. Peter reminds us that the devil prowls around the world like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. And especially in our lives today, in our materialistic lives, Satan is the one who is that lion, and he pushes all sorts of things in front of us. Again, evaluate, are you caught in that materialistic world? And if so, how? And how can you change that? In particular, it talks about that we need to be able to be over action. In Latin, there's a famous saying. In fact, in my schooling for my master's program, it was kind of our hallmark phrase that we used through that program. And it was operatio sequitur esse. What it means is action follows being. And unfortunately, in this materialistic world, we just go into action. We either enjoin ourselves in all of this materialistic things, or we become too focused on work or too focused on this or that. And we forget to be before we embark on action. The being, well, what's being? What do you mean being? Being is curling up in Daddy's lap and listening to his heartbeat, being there with your brother Jesus, being there with love itself, the Holy Spirit. How much time are you spending just loving, just being loved by God and loving him back? How much time do you just adore him and praise him and thank him for everything that he's given you? He's given you all of it. The only thing he hasn't given you are the sins. The sins are yours. But even those, we're going to see later, he says, I want those sins. What? It's so he can transform them, so he can bring them out into the light and bring greater good out of those situations, so that you really can become an even greater person, a greater child of God, become more like him. And we call that part of being part of the divine, We're called to be part of the divine. We're adopted brothers and sisters. We're adopted children into Dad's family. And that means he wants to share all of his being with our beings. And he wants to grow us just like we grew from being a baby all the way up to where we are today. Human beings never stop growing. Bodily, maybe, but certainly not spiritually or mentally. All the different aspects we have of growing. So spend that time doing more being than action. The more time in prayer, just like Jesus, he went out at nighttime and in the morning. We should be doing that too. And prayed to the Father, because that's where the gifts come from. Pray to the Father so that the gifts can help us do what we should do and be what we should be, so then we can go into action. Because only if you spend that time in prayer can you know the Father's will. I mean, all of us could decide tomorrow to do 10 different things, maybe 100 different things. So how do you decide which one? You decide by going into prayer and offering all these different things that you think you should be doing and saying, okay, Daddy, okay, Abba, what should I be doing? What do you want me to do? But you have to spend time and persevere in order to find that. Okay, we'll take a short break again here, and then we'll come back to days 5, 6, and 7.